Hello, and welcome back to Series 2 of the Have We Made It Yet podcast. Numero dos. Oh, for a second there, that would have been embarrassing if I forgot what that was. But welcome back. It's the podcast where two Asian creatives talk about the process of making it with our friends. My name is Josh Yang. I'm one of the co-hosts and comedian portion of the podcast.
This feels so good to do it again. My name is Lucas Ng, the actor portion of this podcast.
Yes, and it's been a while. Like before, I think initially we thought maybe we'd be off for about a month, but hey, opportunities come here and there. Lucas had a great opportunity to get a contract going, and so we decided, hey, you know what? We're the masters of our own domain. We can bring this podcast back when it fits our schedule. I mean, at this point, fits out. I mean, we love our audience, our few audience members, loyal audience members, for coming back. But hey, we felt like now is the time to come back, and we're gonna come back strong. But hey, Lucas, we have to start the series off with our question.
Yes.
Have you made it yet?
No, I have not made it yet. I came to a realization, and I think it's probably healthier to think this way too. As I went on a bunch of different workshops for acting and everything like that. You know what, Josh, and for whoever else is listening, it's better to care less. That's not mean to be lazy, does not mean to be apathetic about your craft. But the best thing you can do is put your best foot forward and literally forget about it. If you really want to, throw away your side auditions. Throw away your audition sides after the audition. Just throw it out. Forget about it. Because the best thing is when you book it and you don't even remember it, because it's a pleasant surprise.
Wow.
So I'm really trying to instill that kind of forced amnesia, because caring about this stuff just hurts too much, Josh. But no, Josh touched on it. I worked a cool job on a pretty cool Warner Brothers movie as a production coordinator, and that was intense, but it was good to get those production coordinator skills down set. So thanks for all the fans that are now listening back for season 2, because we are back. For Josh though, Mr. Josh Yang.
Yeah.
Have you made it yet?
I have not made it yet, but hey, you know what? The moment where I felt like, oh, this feels like this is what it's like to be a comedian last year when I did the Fresh Rice Comedy Showcase at Glenn Gould's studio. Hey, you know what? It's finally coming out. Finally, the professionally shot, well lit, well shot in front of a big audience, and that show, that performance, that set is finally going to come out in May, and that's going to be just a big moment. That's long time coming, long time with the patience of waiting through it, going through a whole pandemic that definitely put a wrench in the schedule, but it's nice to finally feel like we're so close. And basically when this podcast comes out, the Fresh Rice web series, which is how we're going to be releasing all of the sets for all the performers, all the Asian performers, will start off tonight, Tuesday night, with Anna Luo. I made a bad choice there. I wasn't sure if I was going to go halfway through the Mandarin pronunciation or just Anglicanize it. So Luo. Oh, geez. No, I'm getting tongue tied now. Okay. Anna Luo. I'm going to stick to that. So her set is going to kick us off, and it's going to release tonight. So go check it out after you listen to this episode. And basically every week, especially because it's May, Asian Heritage Month, in celebration of that, we're going to release one new comedy set every Tuesday, Thursday, every week of May. And mine is going to come out May 11th. So very excited about that, being able to finally show and share that whole performance, which Lucas, you were there. You can you can attest to. That was a fun time.
Great crowd, man, and we loved your stuff, man. It was awesome.
Yeah, so that's how I'm making it a little bit closer to making it, and I'm excited about that, and I'm excited that we're back. And just to give a little bit of an update, we're gonna come back a little bit different now. We're gonna have a different schedule. Before we were doing it weekly, and we managed to put out 52 episodes, which is insane looking back now that we've had a bit of a break. It's like I don't even know how we managed to do that. But I think moving forward, I mean, given our we're gonna get busy again, and for me, work is also getting a little busy, so we're gonna try and get that balance in between day to day work and then also pursuing creative endeavors. So we're gonna go to once every 2 weeks, so bi-weekly. Yeah. We're going to release this podcast then. And then in between, we might release some clips as well, just to get some content going. But in terms of full podcast, we're going to release it once every 2 weeks. So look forward to that. Keep that in your schedule if you're keeping a schedule of our little podcast that could. But yeah, it's going to be a fun year. It's going to be a new year. Hopefully with COVID coming down, things will open up more. And yeah, I mean, Lucas, what are you looking forward to this year in terms of, starting off this series 2?
I'm looking forward to, you know what? I'm going to try for big fishies this year. Ooh, and by big fishies, I'm going to make it a personal goal to get guests that are of the scene and that keep it a surprise. I try to get big fishies.
Yeah, you got a list going on. You're checking it twice, and we're gonna try and get those big names. I don't know. In this world of perpetual growth, I guess we just have to keep going until we get Tom Hanks onto the podcast for some weird reason. Yeah. But I guess for me, looking forward to having those conversations again, and then seeing how we progress, in the year of making it. Because for this podcast, that's the whole idea, just seeing the progression of that process, the ups and downs, the successes, the failures, the wins and the losses. It's all part of it. No doubt. And however, now that we've got our little bits out of the way, I'm very excited for our guest today, kicking off series 2. I couldn't have thought of a better guest to kick us off. He's actually very pivotal to my initial career and my initial, experience getting into comedy, in terms of the opportunities that managed to present itself. Our first guest has been in the comedy scene for quite a while, 15 years, both on and off the stage. He is the producer and showrunner of the Rice Asian Comedy Showcase, which had their first all Asian showcase last year, 2019. Because COVID took a year out of our lives without us remembering. But that started a wave in Toronto for Asian comedy, and it really pinnacled itself, hit the height last year during the Rice Comedy Showcase that was filmed at CBC Glenn Gould Studio, and the Fresh Rice Comedy Showcase that was filmed right after. So it was an all-Asian comedy showcase. It really managed to bring some of the best performers in the city, some of the newest Asian voices in the city as well, to do comedy on one night. And we're definitely thankful for this guest who has, comedian, producer, showrunner, philanthropist, and host of various podcasts, including the Rice Asian Comedy Podcast. And I got to put this out there. He is the self-proclaimed official spokesperson for Gay Super Cute Asians. Gay Super Cute Asians. I got to get that right. Please welcome Mr. Vong Show.
Woo!
There we go.
Hey, what up? What up? Thanks for having me.
What up? What up? That's right. That's also another one of your time and tested catchphrases.
Yeah. I open every show with "What up, what up," and I usually close at least my podcast. I close every podcast with "That's what's up." Just
Nice.
bring it full circle.
That's what's up. That's what you got to do. You gotta make sure you keep putting that out there, consistent. So that's how you build that recognition, name recognition. Well, we're very happy to have Mr. Vong Show on the show. And you know what? The show wouldn't be the show if we didn't ask you, Mr. Vong Show, have you made it yet?
Not even close. Not even close. And I think for different people, making it means different things. And for me, it's never been about credits or festivals or getting on a show or doing this. To me, it's always been about what venues I can play. So for me, it's the big goal is the Apollo in New York. That's my dream. I've dreamed of it when I was a young kid. I've got several other that's like really high on the rung, so it'll take me a while. But I've got other places with on the list, of course, was the CBC Glen Gould Studio. Next on the list for Toronto is Massey Hall. Right. I've got a 5-year plan. I was like, if I can't sell out Massey Hall in my own town, then what's the point of trying to make it big somewhere else? And then after Massey Hall, that's New York time. If I ever, to me, making it is selling out the Apollo Theater. That's definitely my dream.
Nice. And it's like, I think that is like great milestones to establish, because it does showcase your ability to draw a crowd, bring in a crowd, your name recognition, and your quality of your comedy within a specific scene. And like in general, it is hard for comedians to go from one scene to another scene unless you have national recognition or on like a nationally syndicated show. But it's like that in general is tough. But if you can show that you can, make it in your home scene, then pursue other things. But like Apollo Theater, very famous. Very has some, that's quite a scene. Like what about the Apollo Theater is the one that's for you?
I like it because they will boo you off if you suck. They booed off Lauryn Hill as a 13-year-old. They booed her off the stage crying. So for me, it's like, I just love an audience that I love an audience where they're kind of sitting there and they're, with their arms crossed and they're like, make me laugh, bitch. Like that's what I want. And that's the attitude of New York. They don't care. There's no sympathy. There's no sympathy. There's no like pity claps. So, if you kill the Apollo, that's like the ultimate recognition. Like they will boo Chris Rock off the stage if he doesn't bring it that night. Like they don't care who you are. They don't care how famous you are. You better bring it that night. And that's what I love about the Apollo. Honestly, it's the ultimate challenge.
Yeah. And that sounds really, that sounds in tune to like, my experience working with you and knowing how what kind of crowds you like in general. And like, from what I've seen, like you don't care about how uncomfortable you make the crowd. You're there to speak your truth, speak your comedy. And like, the more uncomfortable the crowd is, it seems like the more you relish it.
Yeah, I would say, so. So part of it is because I started out my career in Alberta, and I was the only Asian comedian, the only gay comedian, never mind gay and Asian, in like the first 10 years of my career. Like, I think people see me doing these Asian shows and doing like these gay shows, and they think that's been my career. No, that is not been my career. My career was going into small little towns who literally people come after you after a show, and they're like, I've never met an Asian before in my life. And actually, the tagline that you mentioned, the official spokesperson. So back then I was probably like 22 when I came up with that. And it was originally it was official spokesperson for young gay super cute Asians, but obviously I took out the young because I'm old now. But that was for Alberta specifically because I'd have to introduce the fact that I was gay and then make them get over it right away. So I'd have to say official spokesperson for young gay. Then I'd pause, the crowd would gasp out of a shock, and then I'd say super cute, and then they'd be like, oh, okay, he's cool. So it was literally written to win over a hostile crowd. So there is a part of me that's a little bit like that. And also like with the Apollo, like, so I grew up in Winnipeg, and people don't know like Winnipeg. When I say I'm from the ghetto, people don't get it because they're like, oh, it's Winnipeg. But Winnipeg is the murder capital of Canada, the violent
Represent.
crime capital of Canada. And like it's like the neighborhood I grew up in was nicknamed Murder Lane because it has the most murders per capita of any neighborhood in Canada. And so like where I grew up, like there is no sympathy, and that's the type of comedy we have. Like I remember when I was younger, I was like run over by a car, and you know, and when I went back to school, it's like they ripped me to shreds. Like they would like make fun of like my back spasms. They would like,
Oh wow.
but thing is, where I grew up, that's like it's a form of love. And I know this is like very different from like the new, you know, Gen Z kind of thing. But like for us, if we didn't like you, we'd ignore you. If we're making fun of you, that's an invitation to like clap back, and then you go back and forth. And so it's even, I know I'm jumping around, but like I remember when it came out to my friends, it was the first time they didn't make fun of me for like anything. Like they'll make fun of like even like disabilities and such, but they wouldn't make fun of me for being gay until a month in, and then they started making gay jokes, and I was like, okay, now I know. Now they're cool with it, because they just started saying like some crazy homophobic shit, and I was like, okay, we're cool again. We're cool again.
Yeah, maybe they just needed time to do the research. I mean, they just had to go back to the writing board and like get some one-liners off.
Do you know what it was? So at the time I was president of the gay club at the University of Manitoba, and they walked past our club office and they saw me being massaged by like these two lesbians, because I don't know, the lesbians were like giving me this like tutorial on how to massage, and they're like, okay, they're like, you know, all of a sudden they started coming to like the gay events. They're like, we're here to support Vong. And I was like, okay, bitch, I know why you're here, but that's okay. That's okay. And then they kind of got over it. Yeah.
You did briefly touch upon already university there. So I did know from researching that you did have a start in engineering. What was there a set of moments that you had in your engineering background that made you realize it wasn't for you and that you wanted to pursue comedy instead?
Well, it was funny. So there were two moments. One was getting run over by a car. I get run over by cars a lot in the ghetto, apparently. And so then I was out of school this was University of Manitoba. I was out of school for about almost 2 years, like 1.5, 2 years. And at the time I was like doing really well. I was like Dean's List, you know, like classic overachiever, you know, straight A everything. And then I got like run over. I'm out of school. I come back, and this is where the ego feeds in, because I'll be perfectly honest, like a lot of my friends who, and I'll keep it real, because this is like growing up in I was like, a lot of my friends who were like a lot dumber than me ended up like graduating and becoming my TAs, and my ego like couldn't handle it. I was like, no, like this hoe is not grading my paper. Like this dumbass hoe is not grading my paper. So then I moved to University of Calgary. He's like, I fucking need a new start. And then I made it to like, I almost finished, and then I was playing sports and my knee exploded, and then I was out of school again. And at that point I was like, know what? Sometimes you need to listen to the universe. And that was me listening to the universe. I was like, F this shit. How many times do I have to get back on the horse and have some horrible, tragic thing happen? And then going through rehab, I was like, no. So I was over it. And yeah, and then at that time I had already been doing like a lot of different human rights things. You know, because when I moved to Calgary, I didn't understand, like, you know, like the Asians there were so oppressed, but they like accepted it. So I was just like, this place is crazy. So I was like just super outspoken about everything. So then I started organizing like human rights conferences. And then and that was while I was still in school. So after I left school, that was sort of my main thing. And then that's how comedy got started, because I wanted to make a difference, but I kind of found that everybody I spoke to at a human rights conference was already like proud of themselves. Like I was preaching to the converted. Like everybody already agreed with me. So I was like, and this is where the hostile audience comes in. I was like, no, I was like, I don't want people to agree with me. I want to go to people who don't understand they're being oppressed and like sort of show them to like stand up for themselves. So that's why I went into all like these like small towns and whatever to spread the message, because yeah, like I said, what's the point? It's just self-congratulatory to like get up there and speak to people who already agree with you.
Right. Yeah, no, that's true. And if anything, that is a much more kind of a selfless kind of motivation than you would normally get starting off in comedy, right? Like, is that what did you really rely on, that goal, that kind of drive to push you to continuously do the small towns and in conservative Alberta? You know, it's not the most welcoming environment for sure. But like, is that what helped you get through those cold nights in Alberta, I assume?
You know, it definitely did. And also that's why I came up with the official spokesperson thing, because I actually didn't call myself a stand-up comedian, because for me, it wasn't just about comedy. I really did want to be like a spokesperson for my community. So it's in a funny line, but it actually is about speaking up for, you know, the community I grew up with, because like where I grew up, we were in a school of 1,000 and 7 people went to university and 2 people graduated. So like, our stories aren't getting out there. Nobody knows what happened in our community. So for me, when I say official spokesperson, I literally just want to speak up for my people and tell our stories because nobody else is telling them.
Yeah, no. And like from what we've seen, like you took that experience in Calgary and then eventually you made it down into the States. And you know that the American comedy scene is definitely very different, and like you've shared some experiences, takeaways from that. But like, I guess in this element of, you know, this mindset of making it, you know, any kind of opportunity or moment that you manage to catch upon, you know, that gives you that inch closer, you know, that's definitely a win. And like, in terms of your American television debut in 2010 on MTV's One Night Stand, that's definitely quite a moment. Like, how was your feeling, you know, getting that moment and then performing and then like getting that sense is like, wow, this feels closer to making it.
It's funny. That was a huge moment in my career.
Yeah.
It was so it was a huge moment, both good and bad. First, the good was I was just super excited about everything. I was so new. I was like, oh, I guess I was still in my late 20s at the time. I went, you know, we went to film in San Francisco. I was staying at this hotel called the Phoenix, which is famous for like a lot of like rock and roll stars overdosing and dying there. And we did the taping at the Great American Music Hall, which is like crazy. Like, seriously, Josh, like if you think the CBC Glenn Gould Studios nice, like this is crazy. This is like where Aretha Franklin sang, and like it was like, oh my god, it was crazy. The experience was amazing, but it also taught me a lot too, because I like the actual editing of the comedy wasn't up to me, and they re-edited me as like a one-liner comedian, and I'm like a narrative, like I'll write 20 minutes of a story and it kind of has to go in the right order, but they took it out of order, and they totally presented me in the wrong way. And like you know, it sounds like I'm being like ungrateful here, but I feel like it's long enough that they won't be mad at me for talking about this. But it was actually kind of horrifying the way I was being presented. It was like my first introduction to the American market, and I was like, wow, this is not my style of comedy. I'm not a one-liner comedian at all, which is great. I think one-liner comedians are terrific. That's just not me. And so honestly, I had a bit of like an emotional breakdown. It was, and I, you know, it actually, so there are two things. There was like the actual taping of it, and then there was when I saw the edit. So the taping of it was crazy. So at that time, I had already moved to Toronto, and I was having quite a good, corporate career. I was working at the National Post, and I had made I was the youngest person on their executive by almost like 15 years. I ran like a whole operations team and all that. And so when I went down for the filming, I think they could tell that there was like a 50-50 chance of me leaving the company. And so, because usually what happens is if you get your first national TV special in the US, you move. Like there's you have about 6 months of heat and that's it. If you do not capitalize on those 6 months, they'll have already released like 10 other specials in that half a year and nobody knows who you are. So you have like 6 months to get down there, get to LA, make all the connections while everybody still wants to talk to you. And so there were a few things happening. I know I'm kind of jumping around because that moment in California and San Francisco was so seminal in my career because it's actually when I walked away from comedy for 7 years. Like when I was at the height, literally right after I filmed my special for MTV. So what happened was, so I had planned the very first Comedy Cares show in Toronto, and I forget the exact date, but I had planned it. I was working at National Post. So Comedy Cares, it's a foundation that I founded. We raise money for worthy causes by connecting, causes with comedians and all that. And because I was working with the National Post, they came on and sponsored us. So they were giving us like these 8-page spreads and all this crazy shit. And so it was like a really, really big show for me. And it was my first time headlining. So I was doing 45 minutes. I was producing it. I was marketing it. And it was really huge. And I got a lot of support from the Toronto comedians, like a comedian who's no longer with us, Joanna Downey. She's a Toronto legend. She actually emceed for me, and Allison June Smith opened for me. And just to put this in perspective, like I was just a nobody at that time. Like I had only moved to Toronto. I was probably in Toronto for like a year or two, and like these big names, it was sort of like their way of giving me like their stamp of approval. Because if they're like, we'll open for this guy, that's basically telling everybody, this guy is legit, because they're not going to open for somebody who like sucks. And so I had that huge show, and then I was also raising money on another show, this time for it was for gay youth sports. And so I had these two shows, and they were like 2 weeks apart. And then so I'm planning all this stuff, and then the MTV thing came up, and it was literally in between the two shows. So it was like back to back to back. And the thing is, not only was it my first time headlining, and then also my first, comedy special, and then it was like all of these audiences. So you think of like, a charity audience, then you think of MTV, then you think of a gay audience. I couldn't reuse any of the same material. So I had to write 3 headlining sets to perform back to back to back.
Jeez.
And all of this. So I make it through the first 2. Probably not as good as I would have liked. But, the first Comedy Cares worked out, sold out. Obviously when you have like a national newspaper chain to help you promote something, it's very advantageous. And then I did the other charity show. The other charity show came after. But so then I boarded the plane to San Francisco literally right after I got off of the stage for Comedy Cares. And then I got there and I performed, and like I was so tired and so spent that I literally so after I got off of the after I got off of performing for MTV, I literally collapsed. They brought me back to the hotel and I was bedridden for 7 days. So like MTV had to like assign me or not MTV. It was like the production company that sold it to MTV. So anyway, but I'll just say like MTV for short. But obviously MTV doesn't produce it. There's a production company. Anyway, so quote unquote, MTV had to send me like an assistant to give me food because I couldn't get out of bed. It was like I held on to so much stress, and it was such a big moment that I like totally collapsed. And then I got back to Toronto. I had to like kind of like muster up what little energy I had left, even though I had none, to do the next charity show. And then, you know, and then this is where it goes back to my career at National Post. They could tell that I was, you know, had to make a decision on whether I'm going to go to LA or not. And so they literally, and I say this literally, they literally tripled my pay.
Oh, wow.
And like upped my title. And I was like, holy shit. And so just so for an example, like with National Post, the reason why they needed me was when I was in Calgary, they had launched their website, and you know, I was like just this like 20-year-old kid. I didn't know any better. And their website was so messed up, and I had to do like the Calgary part of the launch for like the classifieds, that I can't even believe that I did this, but I only did this because I was like young. I wrote like a 200-page like manual on all the shit they were doing wrong with the website launch. And as you can imagine with newspapers, they don't have like a lot of young thinkers.
Right.
People would leave for like TV or broadcast and such. And so I was lucky because there was an executive in Toronto who felt the same way, that we're making all the wrong decisions. And so he got a copy of what I wrote, and he used it as evidence to take over the website in Toronto. And so, you know, then, you know, they sort of hired me to come over to Toronto and help as project manager for part of the website relaunch. So anyway, so they were like intent to not lose me. And then my experience was so crazy and I collapsed, and everything just sort of went crazy. And, you know, this is where this is like the big breaking point. I had to make a decision. And my decision was, unfortunately, when I look back, I didn't think of it at the time, but when I think back, like, you know, I basically sold out. I took the money.
Well, 3 times, man. No one's going to blame you.
Oh my God, it was more money than I would ever. Like, I grew up in the ghetto. So for me, my big dream growing up, like my big dream, it doesn't sound crazy to Toronto people, but like when you're from like not a big city and it's like a poor city, my big dream was to someday make $40,000. Like that was like, if I make 40,000, like I've made it. Like that's like a prairie kid's dream. Like that's like professional. You've made it. And so the money they're throwing at me was just so much. I was just, you know, and like, you know, like I said, with the experience in LA, but oh my God, you know, obviously
Oh, I did want to ask you a bit about like, because, you know, even back in Winnipeg, you had like aspirations and goals, and you already had like a dream and everything. Contextually, like what you did with Fresh Rice and everything, you had smaller showcases all around the city with Fresh Rice, culminating in that one great CBC show at Glen Gould Theatre. It almost felt like an Avengers build-up in terms of like all your, you know, you're setting your little shows all over the place and then culminating into one big production. How important do you think it is for creatives like actors and comedians to really plan ahead and have targets for the future, like what you were doing?
I think it's really important. I think it's a little bit different for actors, because I do a little bit of acting. It's not really my thing.
Nice.
Like I always tell people, and I tell my agent, like I'll act, but basically I'm playing myself. So like find roles where that's me.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of like stand-up comedians, when you see them on film, they're not exactly like, you know, being a character actor. They're just versions of themselves. So anyway, so on the acting thing, I think with acting, you can still like get discovered based on your based on your skills, based on your agent, based on like submitting for the right roles, and just, really killing it on auditions. I think for a comedian, it's really important to own your market because like in comedy, if you like quote unquote make it in Canadian comedy, if you play every festival, if every booker loves you and books you all the time, like still nobody knows who the hell you are. Like it's like you're trying to climb to the top of a mountain that when you're at the top, you're still living in your mom's basement or in an apartment with like 6 comedians. And like, I'm not saying this to be like mean. Like I actually have, like, I know like most of the headliners that headline like, the different clubs in Canada. And it's just, that's just it. You make it to the top of a system that there's nowhere to go. Like you don't like, so for me, I recognized very early, I was like, why am I going to play in that system when the reward, like this is why credits don't matter to me as much. And like I said, I don't want to throw shade at the different festivals because I think like the festivals in Canada are amazing. They really promote comedy and they're well produced. But for me, I know people who have like credits at all the festivals and still nobody knows who the hell they are. That's why like I even like when I'm on a show and they ask me what my credits are, I always say I don't want to give credits because nobody cares. The audience doesn't care. If you go up and they're like, oh, you've been here or there, whatever, they're just like, bitch, make me laugh. Like that's like, they just really don't care. And so for me, that's why I wanted to like build up my own audience. So with like, so like with the race Asian comedy thing, a big part of that was because, I think that there's another thing wrong too with the Canadian system of, like I said, there's only so far to go. But the other thing too is it wasn't my audience. I think if you're like a straight white guy, it might get you somewhere, it might get you a TV show. But it's like one thing I learned is like, they're never gonna love you like that. They're never gonna love you like someone who's their own. Even if like, listen, when I was out west, I used to like tour to different like clubs like Yuck or Comic Strip and everything. And it's like, even if I was the best comedian by a mile, and like even if the audience thought I was the best comedian, the best reaction I would get is, oh yeah, I like that kid. Yeah, that gay Asian guy. Oh yeah, what's his name? I forget. And like that's literally the best you could hope for. And that's not how you're gonna build like a career, because it's also like, if people are going to the show because of the name on the door instead of your name, then you're not building an audience. Like I don't like, for me, I want people to come because they saw my face on a poster, because they know who I am, because one of their friends is like, go see him. If it's like doing comedy where they show up at a club and then they're like, oh yeah, here's some random comedian. Like it's never like, that's not a career.
And like I would definitely agree with that sentiment, and especially now if you kind of see what the different opportunities are out there with social media and being able to build a community, and then with all just the different business tools you can actually do merchandising. You can self-merchandise, create your own shop, and if you have a loyal following, then you can actually market and capitalize on that. Like that's a whole new now revenue stream that comedians don't need to follow this kind of systemic setup in order to succeed, because if you build your own community, then that's your income source, that's your audience source, and that's how you can build a career.
Yeah, and absolutely. And with the Rice shows, it's funny that Lucas, that you mentioned the Avengers, because that was actually the plan. So less so for Fresh Rice, but for like the Rice show, the one that took place earlier in the evening, it actually was that. So the 4 headliners and the host, Ron Jossel, we did 5 Rice shows leading up to the CBC show, and we each headlined one, and that was like our solo movie. And then, to bring it all together is like, this is the one with all 5 headliners in one show. So it helped to sell it. And it also, it built up that audience, because each show people saw, we were like the main event, and then you put like 5 people who were the main event into one show. And that's definitely easier to sell.
No doubt.
Yeah, and I think from that, like, I know, like, I'm interested, and I'm sure people who are interested in making, especially as a comedian, like, sometimes if the opportunities are there, you make your own opportunity, and like that's an element where, you know, it just happened to be like good timing. It was like a good connection in terms of being able to connect with you as well, and being at the right moment at the right time for this opportunity. Because I remember it was like I got introduced to you through Fawad, HP, another Toronto comedian who was like my teacher for the LOL comedy class up at Absolute Comedy, and that was my first step in, and that connection helped lead to kind of this Asian comedy writing group that we had for a couple months in 2019 or 2019. Geez, again, with the pandemic, all the years are mixed up. I keep thinking that is last year, but it's not last year.
No.
But yeah, like I remember that was what led to this community and being able to be there to have those discussions. And I remember that moment where it was like you first brought that idea up after one of those sessions where you, me, and Anto Chan just got some food nearby, and it was like that discussion. It's like, you're doing this rice show, and like you thought it's like maybe there's an opportunity there to also, you know, produce this other show and introduce a lot more, give a lot more comedians that opportunity. Like those are sometimes the weird type of like be at the right place at the right time opportunities that you can get. Like, looking back in your career, like how many times would you say, or like, is there a moment that you felt like is like, wow, it just so happens, right moment at the right time, and I was focused enough and driven enough to take that opportunity?
You know what's funny? I actually think my career is the opposite. Is the opposite of that.
Really?
Is whenever there's a right moment, I ran away from it. Like, to tell you the truth, and listen, this doesn't sound like super egotistical, but my moment was after that MTV show. I did not make the right decision. I was like still in my 20s, and you know, the character I had built, so that, you know, official spokesperson for Young Gay Super Cute Asians, like that's a sellable character that could have been sold. It's not a character I can do anymore. Now my character is like old chunky Asian, which is like fine, but it's not as sellable as like fresh face young Asian. And so for me, I feel like I've built up my career, you know, less from like being in the right place at the right time, but just like making my own opportunities. And any time where the opportunity actually presented itself, I actually made the wrong decision, because that would have been the time. And, you know, like I said, like you can only look back so far. I made the decision I made. I left comedy for 7 years and I've been back for 3, but like that was the time. Like, and especially from like a producer perspective, like, would I rather market the 20-year-old version of me or the 40-year-old version of me? Like that kid, I have no doubt that kid already would have sold out the Apollo Theater. And instead now I'm trying to get back there, like as a 40-year-old. And it's like, oh my God, like, can you like start a movement being so fucking old? Whereas back then, you know, like to have that character where you could go on stage and call yourself super cute, but like it's not ironic, where you're so young that you actually believe it, and they like see how much you actually believe it, but to still be likable and to be like that cocky and likable was like, to me, the best stage character I had. And now I'm transitioning to a different stage character, but as a producer, that's a much easier sell of a character. But that being said, whatever, past is past. I'm only semi over it.
You did briefly just touch upon like your former years and everything like that. And you know, you just recently did an interview with the CBC, and you were talking about the changing face of Marvel superheroes. I read that, and this is a quote from you there. I read that my reaction to seeing the trailer of Shang-Chi, by the way, I was crying. As a kid, I internalized that, and I couldn't see myself. I didn't have the emotional tools to really figure out what I was really feeling. You know, since reflecting on saying that statement, have you had a chance to articulate what you really were feeling, and what were those emotions?
I don't know. I'm not even sure if words would do it justice. It's just when you don't see yourself represented and then finally you do, there's like a release that you didn't even know that you needed. And even as old as I am, like to have that type of moment just watching a trailer just shows that, you know, there's just so much more work to do. Like as great as a moment as that is for me, I hope that for the next generation, they don't have to have that moment because they're just like flooded with diversity. That would be my hope.
And you started it, man. You started it.
Oh, thank you. You know what it was? So there's two things with the Rice show. Like, it was honestly not about the diversity. I'll be perfectly honest. What it was the, like, to me, the 5 best comedians in Canada were all Asian. And like, I'd been doing comedy for 15 years. I was like, this has never happened before. I was like, this is crazy. I was like, I need to do something with these people because they're going to get famous and move away. And this is like, I guess maybe if you're asking me, you know, when there was like a perfect opportunity, I would say this was one of those times. Like, I was like, this is never going to happen where the top 5, in my opinion, the top 5 comedians in Canada were all Asian. And this isn't based on credits or all that shit. This is just based on like actual technical skill. And I was like, if we can get this together, this is going to blow up because, you know, for me with diversity, you know, because I'm an old school comedian, so, you know, diversity is nice, but the reason why I want to do the Apollo is it's like, if you suck, you still suck.
Good point.
So,
good point. Yeah.
And so for me, I didn't want to just do like a diverse show. I wanted it to be the 5 best comedians in Canada, and holy shit, they're all Asian. Like, that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
And you know, a really big proof point I can give about that is it's like, you know, it's not like I only have one choice of doing like Asian shows. I could have done like a gay show at the CBC. I could have done an immigrant show. I could have done, you know, poor people show. I don't know. Like, you know, I'm like a part of a lot of minorities. And so for me, it wasn't about being a minority because I could have just chosen any other minority. And honestly, probably like selling a gay show is even a bit easier than selling an Asian show. So for me, it was literally like, no, these are like the 5 fucking best comedians. And, you know, and we're going to do a show together. And, you know, and for those people who are paying close attention, listening, yes, I am including myself in that 5 because I was part of the show. So nice. Yes, I am just as cocky as I was when I was young, but it was that moment. And also, here's another cocky thing too, where I was like, I wanted the challenge of like headlining a show with who I thought were the 5 best comedians. And one thing you learn very quickly in stand-up comedy is at most somebody will remember one comedian. Like they don't remember their second favorite comedian of the night. So I was like, I want to be on the stage with the best. So we're all competing to be the one who's remembered that night. And I wanted that pressure because we were taping, and I was like, I don't want to have like an easy show and set in front of like supportive Asians and all this shit. I was like, I need like a level of danger. And they're so good that if I didn't bring my A game, then I would have been the one who was forgotten. And also, the other thing too is because I was so worried about production and all that stuff, I knew if the comedians weren't that good, I probably would have focused on production and stuff. But I was like, these guys are so good. If I don't kill it, I'm going to look like an idiot because these guys are going to bring it and they don't have to worry about nothing else. And so, you know, I'm not saying I was the most memorable out of all of them, but at least for some people I was. And that's the thing. Like, it's better to be like the favorite comedian of a certain portion of the audience and like the most forgettable for the rest than to be like kind of like second or third place across the board. Like nobody will remember you. So,
dude, your bit about designing sport uniforms for your sports league, great bit.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's actually a preview. So that's not me. So I'm actually releasing my album later this year. That's actually not going to make it on the album. So like, so for you know, so the Ray show, we taped it on Chinese New Year because it was all Asian material. And so the album actually ends after my chunky Asian Buddha joke. And then the super power bottoms, that part of it, the gay volleyball, that was actually just because I knew like a quarter of the audience was gay. And like Hannah Gadsby has said before, if you have a gay audience come out and you don't tell a gay joke, they will be furious with you. So that was more my like, okay, here, I've got to give something to the gays after I like do my regular material.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, well, you got to know your audience. You got to be able to give your audience what they want. And yeah, I mean, definitely for my part, I was very grateful and thankful for the opportunity to be able to just get not only just on like a stage, but be in front of a large audience and get that feeling. Because definitely when I walked out, I would say in terms of making it, that was definitely the first experience where I could say like, this feels like what I thought like a comedian would be like. Just be able to walk out with the lights in a big theater and be able to perform, and just the mere fact that we managed to have the timing work out well. You know, all the equipment was there. People were hired to do the shooting and be able to get that moment shot on tape. That's like, I couldn't have asked for a better opportunity. And definitely, you know, these type of moments, it does take a lot of work. And I want to thank you for putting in the work and like having the drive to take that idea you had to give this opportunity to the 8 performers, this platform. So I want to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you so much. And, you know, I want to thank all, you know, definitely you, Josh, and all the other Fresh Rice comedians, because it was a different kind of show, because like, it was really a joint effort, because obviously we were filming the early show. And so like a lot of my focus had to be on that. And also, like, you know, it's sort of like what I told the Fresh Rice comedians when we first thought of the idea was, you know, I'm not just for laughs. I don't have a $10 million grant from the government. I'm like a single person living in like a co-op that, you know, is basically a battered women's shelter. So it was like, I'm not like independently wealthy. Like so I was like, this is only going to work if everybody like chips in. So like, you know, everything from like marketing the show to, you know, to selling tickets to writing. I remember there's like 3 months of writing, because my thing was, you know, this goes back to the quality thing, you know, and like I always say, like, diversity is great, but not if they suck. Like I ain't putting people on stage who suck. So you guys really worked through. We worked on your writing for like 3 months. We had 2 rehearsals, and listen, Josh, you went through the whole thing, and it's like, I was not easy on you guys. I was like, this is not going to happen with crappy comedy. I don't care. I do not want fucking sympathy laughs up there. We want real laughs, because you guys are like really funny. And, you know, and just sort of going back to the whole idea of Fresh Rice, it was sort of, you know, so we had the CBC booked, and we had the crew to a certain point. And, you know, the thinking was, you know, we could save like a lot of costs if we like do 2 shows. And this would be like an opportunity for new Asian comedians. You know, selfishly on my part too, I was thinking, you know what? I want to do Rice again. And if I don't help new Asian comedians, I'm going to keep booking the same fucking 4 comedians. And like, you know, like, and they're not going to be available. Like Jennifer Shung, who's on the show now, she's like a TV news anchor. And I was like, I knew this shit would happen, because they're just too talented. You know, like Leonard Chin, he's like writing on like the 3 network TV shows. I was like, So I was like, I need to help the new. So like, just selfishly, I was like, let's get some new comedians in, because if there's not like a development program for new comedians, then Rice is going to die after 1 year. So there was that. And yeah, no, you guys put in so much hard work. You know, like I said, it's not like you got the support of a Just for Laughs that markets and does everything on their own. Like it was more, I opened up stage time and I did some mentoring, and then you guys like put all the pieces together. So
yeah. And I gotta say, I gotta thank out to my little Asian group as well in Toronto of friends that really were super excited about the show and was able to come out, buy tickets, and support the cause of Asian representation in media and in comedy. So yeah, definitely exciting time to start, because we're kicking off this podcast in May as well, and on the night of the premiere for Anna Luo, and be able to start seeing all of our sets roll through, and we're really excited about it. And yeah, it'll be appearing on Vong's YouTube channel. It's called Vong Show YouTube channel. You could probably just Google that, and we'll have links down below. Yeah. And and pretty much looking forward to that. And this feels like a pretty good time to kind of get into a little bit of our end of podcast traditional game. So we'll continue. Yeah, I think some of our listeners may have wondered, or maybe one of our listeners was wondering, when are they going to do the 10-word thing that they used to do? So we're going to start off with that 10-word association game. So Lucas and I will each have 10 words. We'll run through our word list, and Vong, clear your mind at the beginning of our list. And, as we say each word, say the first thing that comes to mind. It could be a word, it could be a thought, an image in your head. It's all good. And then we'll just go through there and then see what happens. And then we'll end off the podcast. So Lucas, do you want to start first?
Yeah, for sure. All right, cool. You feel relaxed, feel loose and everything? Awesome. Okay. So first word of 10. Cute.
Me.
Nice. I like it. Representation.
Simu Lu.
Nice. Stage.
Oh, CBC.
Nice. COVID.
Masks.
I know. Rice.
Steamed rice.
Nice. Not about brown rice, wild rice.
No. I've got a rant about rice, but I only steamed jasmine rice for me.
Nice. Multi-talented.
Chris Rock.
Oh, okay. Plan.
I don't know why, but the first word that came into my brain was planet.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Marvel.
Superheroes.
Nice. Laughs.
Laugh Factory.
And the last word, Vong.
Show.
Lucas always goes for that trick one at the end where it's like, I should think of something else, but all I can think about is me. So it's like that's always a fun one.
Pretty much. And honestly, I'm so egocentric that I'm usually thinking of me.
Hey, sometimes your biggest supporter is yourself. At the same time, sometimes your biggest critic is yourself. So you know what? Yeah, it's all part of the process. But all right. So for me, I know last series 1 I always had the same 10 words, and I decided to keep that tradition, but with a new set of 10 words. So I'm gonna have a new set of 10 words for series 2. Where I'll ask all of our guests, and it'll be interesting to kind of see how they all respond to it. So first word of 10, Vong, clear your mind. All right. First word, childhood.
Abuse? That sounds so bad. I don't know how that came to my brain, but yeah, that's what came up.
What a way to start series 2 with child abuse. Next word, banana.
Self-hatred.
Sun.
Moon.
Solitude.
Jail.
Goal.
Oriented.
River.
Wide.
Circle.
Jerk.
Yeah, this next word, kumquat.
Spanish.
Winning.
A triathlete.
And finally, finished.
The end.
All right, there we go. That's the end of our 10-word game of series 2 to kick it off. That was a great variety of words response to those. And yeah, thank you, Vong, for coming on the show and being our first of series 2, kicking it off right. And yeah, I want to obviously like give a shout out to all your social media handles and the Vong Show YouTube channel. Was there anything else you wanted to plug or share?
No, other than, yeah, the big thing for Asian Heritage Month is the Fresh Rice web series. It's going to be everywhere. And what I'm super happy about too is not just the exposure of the web series itself, but there's going to be a lot of articles coming out, not just about me, but our PR campaign is more about elevating the comedians themselves. So there's going to be an article in the CBC that actually profiles all 8 comedians. And there'll be several other interviews. I know just today, one of the Fresh Rice comedians got a gig on TV and another one got a gig on the radio. So
Nice.
It's just coming out, and we're just going to be featuring these Fresh Rice comedians everywhere. So hopefully if the plan works, you won't have to look for us. You're probably going to get sick of seeing all of the Fresh Rice over the next month, because we should be blasting all across the airwaves for the next month.
Great, perfect. And when in terms of like social media, what are the handles again?
Oh, so my social media handle is @Vong Show. That's like Gong Show, but with a V, and that's across everything: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, anything you can think of. It's the same thing, @Vong Show.
Great. Check it out. And to all our listeners right now, if you wait a little bit longer, you'll be able to see the premiere of Anna Luo. I don't know why I'm really fucking that up. Anna Luo's first set, kicking our web series off at the Vong Show YouTube channel. We'll have links down below as well. So check that out. Lucas, what are your handles?
Everyone can find me across social media at Lucas John Ing. Again, 2 letters for that last name, NG. And Josh, what are your handles?
For me, it's @Josh Yang Comedy across everything. Again, you can also listen to the Sleep with Josh podcast. That's still a thing, even though during the break I did take some time off. I tried to sleep through my Sleep with Josh podcast, but there's still over 50 episodes on there, so you could listen way back in the catalog. But check that out. And of course, remember to like, subscribe, and follow this podcast, the Have We Made It Yet podcast, HWMIY podcast. That's the handle across all social media. And yeah, thank you for coming back. And we're looking forward to a great new Series 2 year. And one more time, thank you, Vong Show, for coming on.
Woo!
Thank you. Awesome.
All right. We'll see everybody in 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
See you later.
Bye.